Hi, this presentation is on drug overdose and analyzing that from the PERIE perspective. So the agenda of this presentation is to introduce the topic of drug overdose, provide a description of what that looks like, trends of deaths due to drug overdose, who is at risk, interventions that have been implemented, burdens of this health condition, as well as a recommendation, implementation, and evaluation of an intervention that we feel would be the most effective. So, drug overdoses was the topic of our study, specifically decreasing drug overdose deaths. As of now, there are approximately 10 deaths per 1 million people, and this affects both male and females as well as all races, and it's caused by misusing medications. As of today, our world has various different kinds of drugs, both illegal and legal. Children are at an especially high risk of drug overdoses just because they are not aware of appropriate dosages to be taking. An example of a drug that can be misused is Tylenol, as well as other prescription drugs and over the counter medications such as ibuprofen and aspirin, things like that. Since 2017, there was an estimate of 70,237 males and females that died due to a drug overdose in the United States. There was a 71% increase of deaths due to drug overdose from 2013. Since 1999, the trend has continued to move upward, and white individuals hold the highest number of deaths related to drug overdoses in the United States. At-risk populations are specifically males and individuals between 25 and 34 years old, and the incidence of death rate in the US for males is 29.2 deaths per 100,000. The drug overdose incidence death rate between the ages of 25 to 34-year-olds is 5.3 deaths per 100,000. So 3 interventions that we discovered was one using Reboot, which involved participants experiencing an educational and a motivational component of an intervention. The educational component contained discussing at-risk behaviors with a counselor, as well as creating a treatment plan that was individualized for them specifically and receiving a dose of naloxone to be used in the instance of an overdose. This was a pilot study, and it really was trying to incorporate a wider spread use of using naloxone. Another intervention that was used did not incorporate an educational component. It was only a motivational component, and it was targeted specifically to individuals in the prison system, because people in the prison system are also at an especially high risk of deaths due to drug overdose. And at their release date, they received a 0.8 milligram dose of naloxone to use in the event of an overdose. And the last intervention involved making naloxone more widely available without the prescription from a physician. So burdens of deaths due to drug overdose is that our world has a lot of drugs, and it can be often difficult to determine what drug was taken and what effects those drugs have on different people's bodies. So our recommendation is that the first intervention is the most ideal. It had a higher score than the other 2 recommendations. This intervention received a score of B, whereas the other ones received a score of C and I. It seemed to have the most effective strategy to decrease deaths, and it also had the most concrete evidence to convey that there were less deaths due to this intervention. The study also suggests that the success rates will outweigh the costs, just because intervention 1 incorporates both educational and motivational components. It may be expensive to implement, but we believe that the success rates will outweigh the costs. So the target of this implementation will be males and females who are aged between 25 and 34. It will incorporate those same educational and motivational strategies as discussed in intervention 1. And in order to do this, we would need access to counselors, naloxone, and ideally it would be implemented in cities that have a high population of at-risk individuals. And we think it would be great to implement this in areas like homeless shelters and food banks where these at-risk populations sort of congregate. To evaluate um, this intervention, it would be ideal to conduct a study to determine how many deaths were occurred as a result of drug overdose. And this can be determined by visiting hospitals and receiving information on deaths related to drug overdose. And that is the end. Thank you.